Hello everyone and welcome back to another tutorial video, and today we're going to be looking at how you execute a diversion in the 737. So first of all, a disclaimer, I'm not a real pilot, just a flight sim enthusiast, so everything might not be 100% correct or accurate, but it should at least be good enough for you to do this realistically in the flight simulator yourself. So, the first thing we need to think about is what type of diversion is it. Is it due to a medical issue, like an ill passenger for example, that need medical attention immediately? Is it a technical problem with the aircraft? Is it or did the company for some ever reason want you to divert due to some operational reasons? Is it weather, like bad weather at the destination, below the minimum for example? Or is it explicitly told that in the non-normal checklist, like we need to land at the nearest suitable airport? So we can think about the first scenario. For example, if your company want to divert back to the departure airport. So in general, if you want to depart or land at your departure airport, it is quite easy to do that in the FMC. If you just go to the departure and arrival page and you find your departure airport here, you have an arrival tab. If you go in here, you can find the approaches and the stars in towards the airport. So in this case, you can take the ILS-1 on the left into Gardermoen, by the unit for Mike arrival and the Titla transition. And then if you go to the legs page, and here you can see the routing then appeared on the last page or behind the original routing. So in this case, you can just do this, and you will see that the aircraft will return back and start flying the approach. Of course, you need to coordinate this with ATC, and they will give you the appropriate star and direct and so on. But this is how you then will return back to your departure airport if that will be needed. Also, if you are still in the climb and departing, or correction, diverting to the departure airport and start descending before reaching the cruising altitude, you will get an off-schedule descent light from the pressurization system, and that basically means that the pressurization system will start to pressurize the aircraft to the departure airport elevation. So that means you don't need to set the landing altitude in the pressurization panel. Due to that, it will do that automatically since you started descending before you reach the planned cruising altitude. So again, if you're returning back to the departure airport and you're not reaching cruising altitude and you got a off-schedule descent light, you don't need to set the pressurization or the landing altitude in the pressurization panel, because the aircraft will then pressurize automatically to that elevation. If you don't get the off-schedule descent light, then you will need to set it yourself again. So if you are, for example, now in this case en route, we are on our way to Hamburg and we for some reason need to diverge. The first thing we need to think about is that we will find a suitable airport in a suitable distance, because we're currently at 35,000 feet, and if it says in a normal checklist, for example, that land at the nearest suitable airport, in this case we for example have Göteborg quite close. It's about 60 miles each away. That's close geographically, but it is not really a suitable airport. We are still at 35,000 feet, we need to descend the aircraft, and we will not be able to do that in 60 miles. So nearest suitable airport doesn't mean the geographical closest airport, but an airport that is suitable for you to land at regarding, for example, altitude and other factors. To be able to find out approximately how much distance you need to descend, you can go up here on the E-face and you can hit the meters button up here. That will then give it everything in meters as well. So one thing you can do, you can either take the first 3 digits here, so in this case 106, and that will be approximately the north miles you need for you to be able to descend from 35,000 feet. Or you can take the first 3 digits in the altitude itself, so in this case 350, and divide it by 3. If you, for example, are in emergency and need to diverge, it is generally easier to just hit the meters button and get the distance from here that will also then reduce the workload in the flight deck. So in general, easy to do it this way. You can also divide it by 3, again the first 3 digits in the altitude itself, but meters in general is easier to use, and it will basically be it will have a little deviation if you divide or use the meters, but in general be approximately the same. So, since in this case we need approximately 106 miles to the nearest or to descent, then we can start looking at about that distance. So, in our vicinity around here, we do have a few airports. We, for example, have Kjevik back here. We'll still be at about 80 miles, but maybe about 983 or something. So that will be quite close. We also have a little bit further ahead. We, for example, have Billund up here. That is still a little bit further away, but it is still a suitable airport, for example. And we also do have Copenhagen as well over here. So to be able to check accurately the distance to an airport, you can do it in 2 different ways in the 737. You can either go to the fixed page and enter the airport. So you can, in this case, we can take Kjevik, and that says 97 miles. You can also, if you go to the index page and alternate destination, you can also enter an airport here. In this case, already entered in Göteborg. That will also give us a distance of about 52 miles, the estimated time of arrival, and also the fuel we are expecting to land with at Göteborg. So this will also then give you a more accurate description of what you could expect regarding time of arrival and also fuel when you are landing. So to give you more information on the alternate test, but also the fixed page is maybe a bit easier to access in a hurry, so it also works great here as well. So in this case, Kjevik is getting close. We are still flying away from Kjevik, so the distance is increasing, so we should be able to descend quite nicely if we then divert to Kjevik. But there is also another few factors you need to have in mind when you're choosing an alternate airport. First of all, of course, the weather. Are you able to land at the airport regarding the weather conditions? Like, is it foggy, for example, or is it raining, or in general low visibility, it's very windy, for example, things like that. Because you, of course, need to be able to land there as well. Otherwise, it not really won't work. Another thing you need to think about is, for example, does your airline, for example, have a base there when it comes to accommodating the passengers? If, for example, they're diverting due to weather reasons at the destination airport, the airline also need to get the passengers to that airport one way or another. So an airport that is, for example, a base for the airline will give them more options to get the passengers on different flights, or an airport that is also quite accessible regarding ground transport as well, train or buses or something. But in general, if you land at an airport that your airline have a base, or if you have, for example, an engine failure that they have maintenance facility there, it will be easy for the airline to fix the engine, for example, and that the aircraft will not be stuck at the airport because they can't fix it there. So there's operational reasons like that. But of course, that's going to be the last thing you will think about if, for example, you are in an emergency, especially an urgent emergency, fire, for example, on board. The important thing is just to get the aircraft on the ground, of course. But if you, for example, have an engine failure, you can still fly for about 400 miles-ish before you actually need to land. But again, then you can consider landing on an airport where you have maintenance, so you can actually fix the engine. Or a minor technical issue that just you're not allowed to continue the flight due to that technical problem. So again, it does depend on the urgency of the emergency. So operation for the airline, how they would like it, is the last thing you will consider, but it is definitely something you should consider as well. That will be pretty much best for everyone if you are able to have that in mind. Also, something else you should have in mind is, of course, the type of approach they have. Is it a non-precision, a precision approach, or generally how we would fly into the airport as well. Just to have a better mental picture as well of what you could expect. If, for example, land at an airport with a precision approach and you are in an emergency, it will reduce the workload compared to a non-precision approach. So that's something also you can have in mind when you are choosing an alternate airport. So in this case, we are not in a hurry to get down. We just have we can say we have a minor technical issue that we need to solve, but we can't continue the flight. So in this case, what do we have around here? We, for example, have Copenhagen around here as well. And Norwegian does have a base there, since you're flying with Norwegian at the moment. And they also have a maintenance facility there, so it's easier to fix the aircraft. So in this case, we can go and select Copenhagen. We are about 128 miles. That is a little bit more than our 106 required to descend, so that is perfect. So then we can then execute that in the FMC. So to be able to set up a new, or set up the alternate airport, so we can fly there, go to the route page. The only thing we really need to do is to just set the alternate airport and then enter it in the new as a new destination in the FMC. And then of course go to the arrival page. Not sure what runway they're using in Copenhagen at the moment, you can just take to the left and the Aeronov arrival, for example. And then just once you're happy, and of course you coordinated this with ATC, you can execute and then take the required RNAV point. In this case Aeronov, you can see that we are flying nicely and we can execute. And we already passed our top of descent, so we'll just start descending immediately. So again, it is quite simple to set it up. It is mostly the planning that is can be the most time consuming in this case. Of course, you need to do an approach briefing and set up everything regarding nav aids to make sure that you're all ready for landing. And also, since we're not returning to either or flying neither to the destination airport or our original departure airport, we of course need to set the pressurization panel again. So a quick thing or a method to find the landing elevation at your alternate airport is to go to the legs page, and if you find the runway waypoint, in this case runway 2 to left, you will see that we have an altitude of 58 feet here. So, and if you just subtract 50 feet, then you will have your landing elevation. Because you always want to pass the threshold at 50 feet, so that's what the aircraft also calculates with in the FMC. So again, take 58 minus 50, that gives 8 feet, so then we'll set the pressurization panel to 0. So then we have set you up correctly, and we are good to go up here. And that is basically how easy as it gets. Again, just a quick recap: if you want to do it diverting to a departure airport, you can just hit departure arrival for departure airport and set up the approaches and starts and transitions as needed. If you then are diverting before you reach a cruising altitude and starting descending before reaching the cruising altitude, and you get an off-schedule descent light, you don't need to change anything in the pressurization panel because the aircraft will then pressurize the cabin to the departure airport elevation by itself. When you're choosing the alternate airport, you need to first of all consider the distance you need, the required descent distance. In this case, you can just take the meters button to get the meters up here and subtract the last 3 digits. Or correction, you can just ignore the last 2 digits and take either the 2 or the 3 first, because of course if you are below 10,000 meters you will not have 3 digits to use. So in this case 76 nautical miles from 25,000 feet. So just ignore the last 2 digits and just use the 2 or 3 digits in front. You can also take the 3 first digits in the altitude in feet and just subtract, but workload, much easier, you just use the meters button to reduce the workload in the flight deck. Also need to consider the urgency of the diversion. Is it necessary to get down as quickly as possible, or are you not in such a rush that you can also think about operational reasons like accommodating passengers or maintenance to be able to fix the aircraft. That will then also decide what suitable airport that you can choose from. Again, nearest suitable airport doesn't mean the closest airport geographically, but the nearest airport that you can land on regarding, again, operational reasons and regarding the distance for your descent as well. To be able to set the landing altitude for your new destination airport, after you set that in here on the destination in the route page and set up the arrival and so on, you just go to the legs, find the runway waypoint, and then take the altitude, subtract it by 50, and then you get the landing elevation. So yes, again, It's quite easy to do. Just need to have the just the planning that will take a little bit of time and effort, but generally it isn't that complicated to plan or execute. So yes, that should be it for this one. I hope that you have enjoyed and learned something new. Hope to see you all again on a new tutorial video or a future live stream, and hope you all have a great day and see you next time. Bye bye.